So hello and welcome. My name is David McElnay, and I'm representing the executive committee of the Urban Design Panel today in introducing our panel presentation, which we're titling the Central City Task Force Listening Session. And it is indeed that. This is a public outreach, but specifically focused on our three disciplines. The Urban Design Panel is sponsored jointly by the American Institute of Architects, the American Planning Association, and American Society of Landscape Architects, and is composed of professionals from those three organizations with a shared interest in urban design. Today, we're joined by Heather Wilson, Executive Vice President and CEO of AIA Oregon, and the AIA has previously hosted this event at the Center of Architecture up until COVID and other items, and now generously offers this monthly Zoom meeting, which we've been doing for a couple of years now until further notice. In addition to a monthly email announcement, our panel presentations can be found on the AIA Oregon event calendar online, as well as their weekly Thursdays at 3 newsletter. I encourage you to look at all of those for great events. Participation in any event makes you a panel member. We encourage you to sign up for information about future presentations every third Tuesday of the month. When you register for any UDP presentation, like the one today, you will be included in upcoming invitations via email. We also encourage you to send any interesting future panel presentation ideas to Kathy Wendland at AIA Oregon. And Kathy, if you'd be so kind to put that in the chat box. We have a chat box running today, which will be part of our Q&A session. So these presentations are recorded as a Vimeo file, and we archive the chats as well. And we will eventually be able to put a link in the chat box to the AIA's archive for the Urban Design Panel. This presentation, as I said, will go over an hour for those of you who can do it. And we're going to it's going to be a Q&A session throughout. I will pass the mic to my colleague, Aaron Riom, who will then explain the sort of why. Go over our agenda. For the Q&A, please post your question and comments in the Zoom chat box. Also, feel free to answer, or rather raise your hand virtually, and we will call on you for questions. Jeremy, also part of our executive committee, will be here to help kind of wrangle the chat box. So follow-up questions can be sent to us on the Urban Design Panel. As today, the Central City Task Force is going to sit back and listen, as we put in the title. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Riom to basically give you the shape and agenda of today's listening session. And again, this is Governor Kotek's appointed Portland Central City Task Force. Aaron, please take it away. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David, and thank you everyone who's joining us today. This is a slightly different format than we typically do for the Urban Design Panel, so bear with us. It's also a little bit of an experiment, but it seemed like a great opportunity to tap into this wonderful audience that we have to share all of the amazing ideas that I know you all are going to come up with today. So just a quick overview of our agenda. I'm going to try to give a little bit of context. This was also provided on the AIA site as part of the registration materials with a little bit more detail and links to dig into a bunch of documents that have been generated by the task force, but we'll go over just a brief synopsis of that. Then the majority of our time today is going to be spent discussing some discussion topics that hopefully are very meaty and elicit wonderful comments. And then we've reserved a little bit of time at the end to just wrap up and talk about next steps and what's going to happen with all of the great information that you provide us with today. So digging right in, what is this task force? So this is being chaired by Governor Kotek and Standard CEO Dan McMillan. The task force itself is made up of a diverse group of different representatives, a bunch of business representation, Oregon's federal congressional delegation, state lawmakers, city leaders, community leaders, a bunch of different participants. And this is one of many different listening sessions that's being held throughout the fall. The task force will be collecting all of the feedback from these various listening sessions, distilling all of that down, and then making some recommendations on next steps that are going to be announced at the December 11th Oregon Business Summit. So you all might want to watch for that. So the purpose and scope of this is to start to address some of the big issues that are facing Portland right now. Things like houselessness, livability, safety, all of the big things that we're seeing in the news that we're experiencing on a daily basis, and that we all know are big, hairy problems to try to address. We're not going to get solutions for all of those through the course of our 1 hour discussion today, but we would love to talk about how that relates to urban design and start to generate some actionable ideas related to urban design that can funnel back into the work that the task force is doing, and ultimately influence the final plan for revitalizing Portland's central city area. So while our conversation today isn't going to focus specifically on those issues, we hope that some of the ideas that are generated will help support the solutions to some of those issues. So why is UDP hosting this listening session? We are not part of the task force. So if any of you are coming up with brilliant questions about what is this task force, why is it happening, we don't actually have the answers, but we have volunteered ourselves to help facilitate one of these listening sessions. And the reason why is because we know that you all have amazing ideas, that you all think about what's happening in the central city. You've got ideas for how to make improvements, how to revitalize Portland's downtown. And we want to make sure that all of those ideas are getting funneled into this task force and represented as that final plan is being generated. Also, we've mentioned in a few of our previous sessions, this AIA design assistance team that is being put together and will be kicking off in the spring. We also felt like this conversation today is a great primer for that effort that's going to be launching spring 2024. So what happens after you all leave the Zoom room today? So our executive committee is going to be synthesizing all of the wonderful feedback that we gather. We'll be submitting that specifically to the Value Proposition Committee. The task force is comprised of a bunch of different committees. That's the committee that flagged us and said, hey, can you host this listening session? So we'll be sending our feedback back to them. And again, through the links on the AIA site and the registration for this, you can dig into a bunch of different detail on the various committees and who's involved and all that kind of stuff. Also want to acknowledge that while we're going to report out on who attended this session today, all of the feedback that you give will be anonymous. So no comments are going to be attributed to specific individuals in the report that we give back to the task force. So feel free to be candid in your feedback. With that said, also a reminder, and I know you all are going to do this, to be kind and respectful. We want to work from an assumption that every person's perspective is valuable, and everyone can meaningfully contribute to the conversation. We also want to stay action and solution focused. Again, we know that these are big, hairy problems. We don't need to dig into the weeds of the origin of the big, hairy problems. We're not going to be able to cover all of that in the time that we have today. We want to stay focused on some action solutions that we can move forward. Lead with curiosity, be transparent and clear, and question the root cause of any problem. All things that I know you all do extremely well on a daily basis. So that's my brief overview of what we're up to here. Unless there are any pressing questions, I would love to just dive right into the discussion topics because again, it's a lot to cover in just an hour, and I would love to pick up 4 additional minutes to be able to tack into that discussion. So how this is going to work, we've got a big group today on the Zoom room. So we've got a few different ways that you all can provide feedback. One is to raise your Zoom hand, and Brian will be monitoring that, and he'll be calling on folks to provide verbal commentary that we'll be recording. Another is to type your comments into the chat. We'll be consolidating all of that and funneling that back into our report and synthesis report out. Also, Jeremy's going to be monitoring that and kind of funneling some of those comments and pulling out some of those key themes as they come through in the chat. Also, we have set up a Miro board, and I'm going to switch technology platforms on y'all really quickly. and send you a link to that Miro board. For anyone who has not used Miro board before, it is a great way to basically have a virtual post-it session and allow everyone to contribute their thoughts. So here is the link. Feel free to jump on in there. I am also going to be screen sharing. So that will allow you to just contribute your ideas on these various discussion topics as we go. Let me just share my screen. You guys are all going to come in as various visiting people too, so it'll be fun to watch that and watch all of the little arrows zoom around. Okay, any big picture questions before we just dive right into the discussion? I'm not seeing any hands pop up or any like seriously confused faces, so I think we're probably good to go. All right, so our first question, we're going to start with big picture vision and success. So we want to be thinking about what should the central city or portions of the central city for that matter be known for? What do we want downtown Portland to be in the future? And again, 3 different ways to contribute your ideas. So feel free to raise your hand and Brian will call on you. Feel free to type. If you're more of an introverted typing on post-it sort, you can use the Miro board or the chat. And we'll try to keep track of all of those.
Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands, but then I have a very narrow view of the array, all the people that are out there.
Looks clear to me.
So what?
It looks clear to me as well. So
it looks clear to you because I'm just seeing it on the very side of my screen. So I assume
we have a group that wants to be quiet and diligently type today, which is perfectly fine.
That's probably the best way to do it. That's true. I'll keep scanning here.
Brian, usually when someone raises their hand, they get pushed to the front of the line, so you don't have to go through the whole.
Okay. It's helpful. Thank you.
And so far, I'm seeing lots of vibrant, lots of safe things related to cleanliness. I would love if there's a brave volunteer who typed in vibrant onto the Miro board. I would love to hear what vibrant means to you. Nico, you just unmuted yourself.
Yeah. I didn't write vibrant. I put the vibrant, inviting place for residents and visitors, like a place that people want to go and spend time in, right? So a place that people want to linger, that it's not just something that we move through, which is fine. Moving through is fine, but actually the place that we want to linger. And we did the study, the studio last spring on downtown. The biggest thing is that there wasn't as much of that happening as we see in other waterfronts around the country and internationally. And so like people out seeing each other, occupying, like being there, spending time there. I think that's an important part.
That echoes some of the comments we've got coming in, rolling in. Occupied loves spaces and places, active all times, exciting, a magnet. Yeah. There's a question in here, and maybe Aaron or others can help answer this. Central City means west side downtown, central east side too. What do we define as Central City in this exercise?
Well, there actually is a city definition of that, and I think it does include central east side, northwest, as well as downtown, and probably even south waterfront, I'm assuming, but I'm not quite sure about that. If we have somebody on from the city of Portland, Troy Doss, perhaps clarify what the city's definition is.
What's the question again?
What's the definition of central city?
Well, I mean, it all depends. I mean, if this is a focus on downtown, then this can be on the west side, mostly the downtown and west end. If it's a central city, as in the regulatory plan district, yeah, it's Central East Side, Lloyd, Lower Albina, Chinatown, Pearl, Goose Hollow, South Waterfront.
Good.
So,
Okay, that's what I thought. So,
but I mean, certain areas are doing way better than others.
oh, for sure.
Oh, it looks like there's a link in there that shows the graphic scope for the task force in the comments. So if anyone wants to poke in there, we can kind of take a look at that.
Yeah. You'll need to scroll down once you get to that link.
Yeah, it includes all of what Troy had mentioned. So basically all of the everything from Lower Albina down the South Waterfront, Central East Side out to Goose Hollow. So more than the Central Business District. The Central District includes all of those urban core areas.
Yeah.
Have a comment on about seeing more sort of amenities addressing and sort of the vibrancy comment about flower baskets, street lamps, removing graffiti, treating the central city as a home that's inviting and clean. So basically some of the best practices in terms of the results of a vibrant, lively neighborhood, the results of that kind of being spoken to here, giving it sense of warmth. How would we achieve that is the question, some of the questions that we're trying to poke at here.
Yeah, and a related question, if folks are done contributing to that first question, scrolling down on the Miro board here, what will success look like? How do we know that we've achieved that goal of vibrant downtown, for example, and thinking about that in terms of different time frames? So what does that look like next summer? What does that look like in 5 years, in 10 years? Starting to contribute some ideas along those lines too would be great. And if folks are running into any issues with Miro, feel free to type those into the chat too. We'll try to handle those. You could also message me directly and I'll try to help you out with that.
Do you want to designate some of these being next summer, some 5 years and some 10 years? Or do you want us to mix them all up?
If you could key in like summer, 5 years, 10 years, dash, and then add that in, that would be great. We can go through the process of kind of grouping things. In retrospect, it probably would have been useful to set it up in like a little matrix, but you know, it's a volunteer effort, so bear with me here.
And to be fair, Erin has done a lot of preparation for this, so she's handling a lot of this end. So thank you, Erin, for that.
This is great. This is one of the most organized Miro boards I've walked into for a session. Well done. Well done.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Yeah. She's a star. There's no doubt about it.
Well, now y'all are just making me blush. So
I think in terms of maybe what would success look like, there's a recent comment here discusses more retail anchors, food options, sort of more occupation and sort of eyes in downtown, better lighting and vibrancy that would help the sort of darker months feel more safe. I think that would be probably near, mid, and long term if I were looking at all those. Yeah.
I'm just scanning through the Miro board. I'm seeing lots of comments about, in the immediate sense, having it be family friendly and a place that people feel safe. And long term, more housing, more local businesses seem to be kind of big themes that are popping up there.
And there's a comment in terms of sort of where to focus our efforts. And I think generally there might be some consensus that obviously we're looking for opportunities everywhere to work on. not limiting ourselves to working geographically, but any sort of how do we look at the city holistically, and how does the core of downtown sort of populate that ideology and sort of renaissance out. Vibrancy includes inclusive race, culture, and generation. So thinking culturally and community wise, and then just understanding that small efforts also add up. The big ideas are there, but the small efforts do plant the seeds for the larger efforts to take shape. I still don't see any hands raised, Brian. So you're still in the
No,
clear.
I don't either. So I was just going to say, does anybody else want to make a comment?
Brian's getting off way too easy, folks.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody's got to raise their hand and chime in.
I'm falling asleep here. Patrick, Dave. Okay, Patrick's first.
All right. Oh, thanks for letting me chime in. I appreciate the open invitation, as well as I'm a bit amazed. This is one of the busiest mural boards I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So kudos to the community for jumping in here. I wanted to chime in on one theme that I think matters a lot to me, and I'm seeing repeated a lot here in the board, is that instead of Central City having its previous focus was much more on business and people coming in the morning and leaving in the evening, having that 24-hour business presence and having more housing, particularly at a more affordable rent price, hopefully, seems like a big priority, at least to me, as a way to try to get things back on track. And in a post-COVID work from home type world, that model of a central hub with everybody coming in doesn't seem like it's a good model to be emulating in that environment. So that's my 2 cents.
Great comment. Thanks, Patrick. Dave?
Hi, everybody. I may have missed this at the beginning, but my question was more about procedure for the task force and what their charge is and what happens after they gather all the information.
Yeah, so you did miss that, Dave. Aaron went through it. Aaron, do you mind recap really quickly?
Yeah, sure. So currently the task force, which has a bunch of different representation, there are a bunch of different business owners, state legislators that are participating in the task force. Overall, it's being chaired by Governor Kotek and Standard CEO Dave McMillan. So through a bunch of different listening sessions that are being held this fall, this is just one of many, they will be collecting all of this feedback, distilling that in pretty rapid fashion in order to provide some recommendations at the Oregon Business Summit on December 11th. So that's when you'll next see some products come out of this process. And I also clarified that none of the UDP executive committee were not involved in the task force. We just got recruited to facilitate this listening session to be able to tap into this amazing community, to be able to provide feedback back to them. So if you have more specific questions about the task force, there are some resources that are available linked through the AIA site where you registered for this event. If you have other specific questions, I'm happy to funnel you toward a task force member, but most likely this group isn't going to have answers. So that's my non-answer answer to your question.
Yep, that's a good recap. Thank you.
So as we're rounding the corner on this, I think there's another comment in here about, I think it refers to vibrancy, and it just, one of the things it says is pedestrian streets with outdoor dining, things that we've seen, I think we've seen in the COVID era happening, and then maybe sort of perhaps repopulating. I know Peabot's got an outdoor dining program permitting process that has launched out this summer, and then the idea that it follows into the winter so that there's heated and illumination that makes it warm and inviting as well. So those are the hopefully the results, but things that can contribute to vibrancy. I know PBOT's also working on a street plaza program. So there's PBOT in the city is working on ways to populate the right of way in ways that we maybe not, that can evolve over time here in the near term.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Of course.
This is Jeff Scherer. I live downtown and I spend about an hour and a half every day walking downtown in a kind of a 360 degrees from my home just to see what's going on. I've been doing it for about 3 years, and there's a couple of topics that I'm calling from my phone. Unfortunately, I'm not at a desktop, so I can't see the mural board, but the topic that I'm interested in and my neighbors are interested in is fear and personal safety. And I've had acquaintances who have been attacked because of folks acting out. And I'm just curious, apart from relying on capitalism and commercialism to solve many of the population problems and bringing people to downtown to spend their money, is there anything being addressed about personal safety? For example, on many campuses, there are stanchions that have emergency buttons that could be pushed. Response times are really lousy right now with the police, but is that topic being addressed at all?
I don't know. Do we have any information about that, Aaron? I don't. It seems like it should be addressed. I mean, it's clearly an issue. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that is one of the top issues. And Jeffrey, I'm sorry that you can't see the Miro board, because looking at the responses that came back on Vision, at least close to 50% of them are about safety and improving safety in downtown. And I think everyone knows that that is a big issue. This group doesn't know what recommendations and what strategies are being generated yet. And this is a very, very early community listening session. So this feedback will funnel in to help inform those recommendations. So watch for that Oregon Business Summit December 11th meeting to see next steps on that. Since it's 12:30, I'm also going to segue us over to the other topic, which is semi-related to the question that you just asked, Jeffrey, which is about community action. So part of what the task force is asking folks to do is list out, are there actions that your organization could contribute to help make these visions a reality? This is going to have to be a collective effort. So are there things that individual organizations that are represented here on this call, or our broader AIA, ASLA, OAPA organizations might be able to champion to help move these visions forward? So if you're ready to move on to that question, this would be a great time to do that.
Carol, got your hand up.
Thank you. I'm just trying to think about the fact that not that long ago, we had a lot of new development going into our city. We had an amazing amount of housing. We had hotels. We had private development that, Design Commission couldn't keep up with. And because economic circumstances have changed so much, we're just not seeing much of that right now at all. And so we're not seeing even the vibrancy of construction workers in our downtown. We're not seeing the jobs being generated in quite the same way. But we have a list of current and future projects. I'm just trying to think of them that we really should place pressure on our leadership to initiate. It's not for lack of what to do. It's more of a lack of will to do it, perhaps. And I'm thinking about, replacement of the Performing Arts Center. There's a new vision for the Lloyd Center. There's, of course, the Albina vision that's got a lot of great ideas in it. The Frog Ferry, for example, what if we had more interest in our riverfront and using it as transportation? And the Burnside Bridge is going to be a big one. So I hope you're all tuning into what that opportunity is, even though it'll exact some pain and the time it's going to take to build it. But luring more private donors into the downtown would instill a lot of confidence in the investment in our city. So that's one reason I'm really thinking about that replacement Performing Arts Center. I also think there's a ton of work to do on the Green Loop to actually start implementing more of it. And it can be a big grassroots level effort that get local communities together and the neighborhoods to support that idea of connectivity. And it would add to the vibrancy that I think we're all looking for.
Great comments. Thanks, Carol.
And Carol, your comment, or one of your comments, also offered a little bit of a spoiler. So if you zoom down in the Miro board to the box just below community action, there's a box for city action for recommendations that the city and its partners should take to help move the vision forward and eliminate some barriers that might be in place to moving this vision forward too. So big reveal, spoiled, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm also noticing that we must have some very artsy Miro aficionados in the house today, because folks have been doodling hearts and stars and thumbs up and all sorts of fun things over the Post-its. So this is great. I'm definitely going to have to screenshot all of this and send it to the task force too, in addition to recording all of your comments.
Oh, Dave, got another question or a comment?
Yeah, I haven't seen the list of who's on the task force. Is there anybody from AIA, APA, or ASLA on the task force?
I have not seen the list either. Does anybody have knowledge of that, David?
No, I mean, we have for sure know that Eco Northwest had some folks from Eco Northwest have been recruited to be on either the committees or the task force. It's really, I think, a broad coverage. The importance and the reason we made space for it today is that this is our opportunity in those, at least those three professional disciplines, very specifically, to raise, awareness about, our desire to participate, to make space, to facilitate. And really excited that Eco Northwest, specifically, one of their representatives reached out to us with the idea. They were in the, what's it called? The value proposition committee within the Central City Task Force. So that's something I would want to steer back to, is now's our opportunity as architects and landscape architects and planners to kind of think about that term value. And I know we're talking about cultural values and sort of societal values of especially in the concept of vibrancy and activation. But this idea that the built environment provides real value that you could actually monetize in terms of, I think my point here would simply be that it's the creation of these spaces in which we find community, and it's also the maintaining of these spaces in which we find community. So literally maintenance, upkeep, and I think funding to promote the ongoing oversight in these spaces. And these are things that maybe aren't necessarily in our purview, but go hand in hand with this concept of what are we as stewards of the built environment, how can we get our voice in front of this task force? So it's an exciting moment to get this pulled together today, and Aaron's wonderful mural board will just have a ton of important information that we'll pass along.
Okay, Carol, you're up. Turn on your phone. I mean,
turn on my phone.
Whatever.
Some of us were asked to apply for it and a position on that committee, and Nolan is the only one that I can tell it has an urban design background and focus. But what we all know and think about feeds into just about every aspect that is going to be discussed in this task force. So I think I just really wanted to compliment all of you for putting this together and placing this information in front of the people that are on the task force. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would offer that I put the link to the task force in the chat, and there is the list of everybody involved is on there, and it goes everyone from elected officials to local business people to cultural community members, and Nolan is what appears to be the at least one of the key urban design team members on there.
Yeah, I know. I can add quickly. Well, unless we've got a question, very quickly.
Heather's waving in here, David.
Yeah, there we go. I was about to intro you on this.
Oh, good. Well, perfect timing. I was just going to say, and Kathy has copied my note here. We did apply. Our president, Kaylee Fott, applied for a position on the task force. We clearly want to be engaged in this conversation. Have considered it very important. And want to figure out how we have more of a voice as the AEC industry to help be a resource. We've got lots of power in our association, AIA, ASLA, and the American Planning Association. Between those organizations, we've really got a lot of volunteers that have thought critically about these things for a long time. And we'd really like to just figure out how we continue this conduit, because it's not a problem that's easily solved. Obviously, the task of reforming and reviving a city the size of Portland is a all hands on deck lift, is how we feel about it. And so to all of the extents that we can be a part of it, including our design assistance teams and the things that we fund from AIA National that can be really helpful in these type of situations, we'd just love to continue. I think that's my main goal. I'm really happy this is happening today. And also I want to make sure that we remain engaged.
Yeah, so interesting. It's good that you mentioned, I think, the DAT, because Aaron mentioned it in the lead up to this whole thing. And so I think for people on this Zoom call right now to stay engaged, as you said, Heather, and the DAT is coming this spring, we hope, and so hopefully that will re-engage everybody here to be involved in our revitalization of our at least a part of downtown, which is where that DAT is going to be focused.
And I am very sorry that I missed the first portion of this meeting. I was with my children at a dentist appointment that I could not rearrange. But I did want to ask if there were any questions that I might have missed from the beginning of AIA Oregon or about AIA that I can fill in on. I'd be happy to.
I don't think anybody had any questions about that. Where everybody seems to be frantically engaged in the Miro board, which is great. I mean, this is where we're getting all great comments and stuff.
I'm so glad to see this. This is really exciting.
It's fun.
Thank you, Nico, for being here, Nico. And the students, thank you for mentioning that. Students will be involved with this design assistance team once we get it off of the ground. The application, rests with National, but I can't imagine them not approving it and moving forward. I think this type of direct interaction with the governor's task force and with any municipal contacts that we should be aware of will make it a lot easier, obviously, to get good work done. And just to keep in the back of our minds that we won't be fixing any immediate problems. We're talking about 30 to 40 years in the future with our activity.
And just speaking off the cuff here, so Heather, you can correct me if this doesn't seem appropriate, but it seems like the report that we compiled to give to the task force could also feed directly into the design assistance team once that team gets rolling. And all of this great work that you all are putting together today could create a wonderful foundation to jumpstart that effort come spring of 2024.
Exactly.
With it all quiet in the chat, it's been good to like zoom in and read everybody's comments. Looks like everybody's peppering all the way along. People are moving forward with their ahead of the game too a little bit. So I'm sure there'll be more to respond to as we go to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah, nice segue, Jeremy. Thank you for teeing that one up for me. I also just wanted to point out before I move on, I like the post-it here with a little heart on it. More UDP meetings like this. It's great.
Well,
oh, somebody dropped a map into the. I think as we were.
Troy, did you do that? Somebody dropped a Central City thing.
Yeah. Thank you for that, whoever dropped the map in. So jumping on to our next prompt here, and it looks like a lot of people have gotten jump started on responses to this, but just starting to think through, based on the ideas and the actions that this community might be able to take on to help make that vision a reality, what are some of the barriers that might block your progress to taking that action? And again, if anyone is interested in vocalizing your ideas today, you can keep Brian on his toes and raise your hand.
This is a comment I think I learned a lot from as well, and this probably captures a little bit about even small efforts can help, but there's a comment about perfect being the enemy of good, and I think the reality of all efforts contributing to results in a positive way can add up, and I think that's something to keep in mind, the small efforts, and I guess I'll use Carol's term, cheap and cheerful. The idea that you can still make a difference with the small efforts is definitely a reality, as well as the big ones.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Carol's got her hand up again. There you go. You're muted, Carol.
I can't read the Miro board on my computer, but Brian, I just wondered how the reorganization of our local government is going to stall out perhaps projects and vision how much effort is going to have to be put toward figuring that out, how to implement policy and how to reinvent our city from a jurisdictional standpoint. What are your thoughts about that?
Carol, you're asking me.
Yeah. Well, or maybe somebody else, but
that's a good question overall.
Take a while.
I don't. I mean, one would hope that the bureaucracy, if that's the staff at the city, would be able to carry out a lot of their functions and some of the staff, certainly in the planning sustainability bureau, should be able to kind of follow through on some of this. And I don't want to kind of push this off to Troy or anybody else at the city, but hopefully that there will be continuity there that will push forward a lot of these projects that we know are in the pipeline. And you mentioned before, so yeah, I mean, it's it could become kind of a mess, especially at the beginning of 25 when the whole new organizational structure is in place. But my hope is that the city manager mayor combination of the strong mayor and a city manager will be able to kind of grab that bull by the horns, for lack of a better term, and really continue to push on through with big ideas and the details that need to follow on that. So that's about as much as I could say on it at this point, but I'm sure everybody else has their thoughts as well. So, but good question.
I don't think we can wait for a lot of this. And it seems like we will, because we may have policymakers who are unwilling to put themselves out there to be proponents of projects if they know that the governmental structure of support is going to be different than what we have right now.
Yeah, that's possible for sure.
Yeah.
Like anybody can predict. Certainly that's a potential barrier for sure, just to be thinking about.
Yeah, there was a comment on one of the post-its in the barrier section, Carol, just to your thoughts. Hiring diverse managers who share a positive vision and are willing to court public disapproval to implement the vision. So, that could go a lot of different ways. I'm not the author of that, but this concept of moving forward with something, you could probably ask just about everybody in the chat room today about trying to keep projects moving down the line or trying to get projects going. My hope, just to kind of editorialize without really answering the question, is that, if we can sort of create bridges between silos with some professional management, potentially sort of higher level of skill for cross pollination of values within a regulatory government that should be looking more towards a government that's helping to create things. That's a potential hope for the restructure, but nonetheless, there should be urgency of the highest priority to get there, right? To get the restructuring in place and to get implementation moving in order to, get going under what could be a better structure, but needs to start happening quickly.
Yeah.
I was just, if I may jump in again, I was just thinking about the visions for O'Brien Square that Randy Gregg put so much effort into, and gathering of community ideas and building proponents for the project. And what would it take to just get one thing going in the downtown that people can really rally around and get excited about? and call it mitigation for where we're at right now. But I think we need to lead with something that is forward thinking and tangible. And I'm not seeing that right now. And I don't think we can wait 2 years for a new organizational structure to take place. We need to do something now.
I think that's a good observation. Randy, you're there. Do you want to make any comment about that? And actually, the urban design panel may want to talk to you about what progress is being made there, actually.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. It's kind of in PPR's hands right now. The idea was to create an interim, design because there isn't enough capital projects money to, do a full-on, public plaza. So I think I thought I saw Russ Swanson's name on this call, but he and his team are working diligently to, get a sort of light infrastructure, design, readied for when the demolition is complete. And the aim is to, I think, have everything done and ready to go by spring. There's quite a debate going on as to, whether the plaza should be fenced or not. A lot of business community really wants it to be fenced and locked up at night. And that kind of goes against the grain of a lot of Portland values. So we'll see how that comes out. And then obviously there's Commissioner Ryan's renaming of the square with City Council support of Darcel 15. There's potentially a lot of energy around that in the LGBTQ community, and I think there just needs to be some kind of rallying done. But I think there's reasons to be optimistic, carefully optimistic about Darcel 15 Plaza.
Good. Thanks for the little update.
Randy, is there anything we can do?
Sure, weigh in on whether you think it should be fenced.
Oh boy.
To whom?
To PPR, because ultimately they have to make the decision. So yeah, I mean, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, I think it's an important question. It's it's a tough neighborhood, but is that the only way to do that? So I think that ultimately the decision will rest in Commissioner Ryan's hands.
Well, perhaps we start with it being open, and then if it does need to be fenced for some reason, then that might be added. But
yeah, well, it's a money question, and again, I defer to Ross because he's more in the weeds of it than I am. But it's a lot of money to do something that's less than or more than a cyclone fence around it. So I think that, and there's only so much money to spend on it. So I think that decision is going to be made fairly shortly.
I'll go on record as being against fences. It's public space. It should be used as a public space.
Yeah, I think there's probably a great deal of sentiment in this community for that.
right.
So.
Well, it might be wise to make it a subject to your next regular meeting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the train's moving fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of things on the agenda coming up in November and December, but certainly first of the year, if it's not too late, I think the entire community would like to see what's going on in terms of the design and that question in particular. So we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, I would just tell you that the train is moving fast. So if it's a priority for your committee, you should move it into the earlier slot.
Okay.
So unrelated to all of that great discussion, I just have a clarification question. Right in the middle of our barriers board here, someone drew a circle on a Post-it, and I'm just curious if that circle was intended to have meaning or if it was just a random circle.
I think I just messed up. I was trying to like move something. I think it was me.
Oh, Glenn.
Glenn. Well, making a smile anyway. Okay, there you go.
All right, now we've got a smiley face. Sounds good.
It was a subliminal negative space statement, right?
Oh, I'm sure the committee will love that one. So
We're like, oh, those designers.
yeah, right. Now what?
Oh, the smiley face has a party hat. Excellent.
Okay.
All right, so we're closing in on 1 o'clock. I know we're typically only scheduled for an hour, so some folks may need to drop off. If you do, that is okay. If you do have a chance to also contribute, which it looks like a lot of you have already, to city action. So what should the city and its partners do to support and remove some of these barriers to community action? We would love to hear from you on this topic as well. And once again, feel free to keep Brian on his toes by raising your hand and he'll call on you, or typing things into the chat. Jeremy has gotten an opportunity to be quiet for a really, really long time. So you might want to keep him on his toes too.
Well, with that invitation, I'll just say there's a comment that in the past it's been also, we were talking about Darcel 15 Plaza area down there on Southwest Washington, that and downtown itself has had tougher times in the past. And so with that, I'm interested, like how did it evolve? Are there lessons learned from that in this process that we can think about applying to the future, or is this a whole new chapter that we need to be really more innovative with? Question about how we might be sending a summary out to the urban design panel in the future from this. Have we thought about that, Aaron? I'm not.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Kathy and Heather are going to come away from this with the registration list. And what we can do once we compile our report is send it out to this group so you all have access to the synthesized report that we've put together. And then we will be resurfacing that in the spring as part of that design assistance team effort as well. So I'm also noticing that car-free downtown 7 to 7 all days except Sunday has 3 hearts sketched by it.
Yep.
Aaron, I put something down there about sales tax. Don't hit me on that. I know there's problems with it, but I was watching some legal Oregon City presentations and county presentations to the Senate Committee on Finance, and they're talking about how Measure 5 is long-term effects of just destroying their ability to budget appropriately and raise the revenues they need. It's also been some discussion of fairness with Measure 5, but and then as you probably know, Portland and ODOT are taking a big hit with gas tax. And so here we are. We have agencies like Peabody who are trying to make a walkable, bikeable place, but they need to drive to pay for it. So I think something has to change statewide on a funding platform. I think Barbara Roberts tried years and years ago to give us a 3-legged stool of sales tax, income, and property, and I think that would also probably lessen some of the outmigration that we just saw eco report from Multnomah County if we weren't so reliant on property tax.
Yeah, there's the That's the big issue for sure, long term for sure.
Well, Glenn's circle made me think of something that I've been peppering a comment across the boards, which, I'm struggling with the concept of services, right? So as designers in the realm of urban design, where our different design disciplines, coalesce or converge, that's a nexus of lots of different things, right? Infrastructure, space, architecture, landscape, planning of greater grids and size of grids. But we don't really, it's quote unquote not our purview to address services. That chasm is, perennially problematic to me. And I'm noticing other people putting in things like, if you don't clean it up and respond to safety calls, nothing's going to change. And I do feel that we believe that better spaces, better urban design will encourage better behavior, will call people to the space, and will discourage bad guys. But I do feel that one chance we might be able to do is to encourage, like in a city action, for example, here, that just like integrated project delivery, which is an AIA contract for really a cross-disciplinary focus, or CMGC, where you've got a construction manager at the beginning of the project, pricing it, figuring out the path forward. We should really be looking to include services, police services, health and safety services, mental health services. It really should be a greater design team, in my opinion. I'm sure it may be getting done in certain spaces, but it's just not a given. And I think the city-driven work would be a place to sort of mandate that kind of integration, or try to at least get it going on. Oftentimes, safety isn't really even brought into the design phase at all, except whatever the designers are expert at. But I've had some recent experiences with police forces and SEPTED. The concept of design and spreading the value of urban design as a safety measure. But we do need to think about services that follow after that is built. And I see many people commenting on that, because there's a lot of people here who aren't designers, and wonder how that works.
There's a follow-up on the tougher in the 80s comment that I think is worth daylighting here if you haven't read it. And the idea that as part of the post-recession investment in downtown transit and basically avoiding new highways and looking towards public transportation as a sort of key ingredient of a vibrant downtown. And I guess with that sort of part of the catalyst of that step earlier, maybe look at how the downtown is. I don't know if the word disinvestment is the right word to use, but definitely, the density of the day-to-day office space. What is the next catalyst? What's the ingredient that we might be missing that also contribute to it? What might be that next sort of target and goal in terms of creating the next downtown vision in terms of healthy cities?
Jeremy, I've thought about this one too. Was it 72, the downtown plan, then led to the 78 Transit Mall. And it was, at the time, I think, very forward thinking with the retail spine, the transit spine, the housing spine, and the office, retail, office, and housing. And now I look back about 10 years ago, I was looking at it like, God, it's really pretty Euclidean. We didn't know it. And it was also a big equity play. I think by the time we had white flight. So I feel like this is a shakeup with the pandemic of, we've realized the problems with Euclidean zoning years and years ago. Now even to the point where we're really changing up our single family neighborhoods. So there's something there. And I don't think that the regulations are the barrier. It's just more the framework we established, right? I'm not sure what the answer is there, but I think a relook is very apropos.
I'm also seeing a couple of post-its down here that have a number of doodles about establishing a land bank or establishing a community land trust to buy and build. Um, anyone who put those post-its up there have any interest in chiming in and elaborating on your thoughts on that one?
I put one of them down, but I'll wait 5 seconds for everybody else to talk.
I added a heart to that, just because as a person who's interested in kind of trying to work with outside of the typical developer framework of prioritizing profit over people, it seems like one of the ways that we can get there is when some kind of organization or public entity decides to take ownership of land or put it into a land trust, and then you're relieving some of the pressures that are for, kind of quote unquote forcing developers to create projects that don't really serve the community or the people that are going to eventually occupy their projects as well as they could.
Yeah, interesting comment. That's good.
Yeah, thanks, sorry. And I think there's a still private semi-public version of that. Like if you look at Tramet's TOD plan, like they outlined when they do development, how they work with the community to make sure that they aren't getting pitches from developers that don't match community needs. That's pretty clever. I feel like having, analyzed many pro formas and, there's a lot of places where development just doesn't even happen. When you look at the Southwest Corridor in Barber, it doesn't pencil at all, even if you give the land away. And so clearly there's a problem with relying on the private sector to build all of our housing. And, professionals in other countries live in housing that was built and owned by government. It's not Caprini Green. It's just a different model. And so that's where I think we need to get. Another thing that, part of the 2040 plan, when Charlie Hill says we're going to be the best European city in America, I mean, a lot of that was predicated on the shift to a higher percentage of multifamily dwellings compared to single family. One of the reasons for our proclivity for single family is the tax structure. It's one of the best ways to build yourself a safety net. And our we limited condos, since that's difficult to do. So that land trust model gives a way for people to do that, to live in a multifamily situation and build, and single family for that matter, but build some equity without having to come with the full entire down payment. So there's a few thoughts, but I think there's a lot of potential there.
Good.
I'm also seeing a number of comments with lots of hearts, stars, check marks, and doodles about transit, subsidized transit, free transit. So that seems to be another kind of key theme that's striking some resonance with the group.
It's like fashion. What's old is new again, maybe. Getting free transit to downtown.
Of course, free transit to downtown essentially means free transit.
As I said that, I realized what that implications were. Yeah, not just the free transit center in downtown, but actual access, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I felt like Square was training wheels for transit, right? You didn't have to risk a trip. You could just get on the bus and see if it gets me to that meeting. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is slick. That was a lot quicker than walking or moving a car.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes, there are those of us who remember those days.
So really quickly before we head into our wrap up for this, we started this with 4 big topics and a few discussion prompts that had been generated by the task force group. But I'm curious, any other ideas or comments that you all have that don't necessarily fit neatly into those discussion prompts or those buckets? We'd love to hear those and record those as well too. So feel free to chime in with those. I can actually create a little other bucket off to the side real quick here too to be able to log some of that.
So David, you have your hand up, and
I'm trying to be a good
yeah,
participant.
Michael. Well, let's maybe give Michael a chance to talk first because he hasn't had a chance. You're muted, Michael.
Now I'm not. Somebody noted barriers about waiting to achieve consensus, and then somebody made a note in there about improvements that are 50 to 75% good should be celebrated, not wait for 95 to 100. And that's a really interesting departure from the kind of traditional Portland way of doing things. And I'd be curious to hear or think more on that in terms of speeding up the process and getting things off the boards and into the ground a little simpler. And I'm not necessarily recommended to trash design review or anything like that, but I think there's got to be some way to kind of fast track really important projects that don't get bogged down in the process. Darcel 15 Plaza, the end result's going to take a long time just because of the process that we have to go through with master planning and getting the design done and to the city standards and whatnot. So trying to see if there's a way to kind of move things forward without getting bogged down.
Interesting comment. Okay, thanks. Yeah, go ahead, David.
I was Aaron's comment about sort of adjacencies. I was just thinking of transit commuting, and there were two things. One was kind of the physical quality of the stations and stops. That's obviously that's under TriMet or others, but so it's not city per se. However, they make a great deal of difference in terms of use of transit and AKA activating streets and something other than driving around in a car. And that kind of goes hand in hand with a big difference that I saw in the last few years of the transition from police safety on transit and the use of a changed and yet very effective transit security teams that have made a great difference this year in terms of, I think, the quality of the use of transit and the way that people are handled. So services that are improved. So somewhere between the quality of the transit environment and the services that go along with it, that has made a difference.
So we no longer have the board up on, and so are you still recording comments, Aaron? Otherwise,
oh yeah, they're still moving. I just didn't want you guys to have to watch me create another board for other ideas down here.
No problem.
i.e., as I fumbled through doing that live, I didn't want everybody to watch me do it. But I'm happy to pull that back up again. And there have been a few folks who have been contributing to this other ideas section as well. So feel free to populate that in addition to the other comments. We're closing in on the end of our time. We have an immense amount of content that you all have provided, so thank you so much for all of this. So in terms of our next steps, we're going to be going through everything that you put down on these Miro boards, synthesizing some key themes, but I'll also take screenshots that have all of the comments aggregated there. We'll also add in the comments that were expressed verbally through the meeting and also comments that were plugged into the Zoom chat. So everything's consolidated in one location. We'll provide that to the task force. We'll also go ahead and email that out to this group of attendees so you have access to that report. And then look for that resurfacing again when the DAT effort starts up in the spring. We also have a couple of sessions coming up for UDP that we've already lined up. Brian, did you want to speak to what we've got on the docket for November and December?
Yeah, and I will talk about that briefly here. The Interstate Bridge replacement project and its impact on Hayden Island and on other places where it hits the ground there on the mainland. is something we've been kind of bouncing around here and having them put them off for this one, actually. So I think we have to go forward with them, or we're going to lose them. So anybody interested in that particular long range project, that's scheduled for November. And in December, we were going to have a presentation by the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability on Barry Manning, who's on the list of people here, to present on the Montgomery Park area and the extension of the streetcar. But Randy's idea here for perhaps substituting that other project for one of those two, because of the urgency. Now, Randy, you're still on. Could you speak to how we might be able to get input into that project within the timeframes we've got here? I don't know how critical that timing is for you.
Sorry, I was kind of fumbling around. It's pretty critical, because I don't know exactly what the schedule is, because I'm not directly involved in it anymore since I left the foundation. But I can circle back with you, Brian, if you want, because I'm going to get some sort of update later this week in terms of where they're at.
Sure. Okay, yeah, that'd be fine. As I said, we have some other schedule.
But in terms of applying a pressure, I would say, a letter from the urban design panel to Adina Long and Dan Ryan, weighing in with any concerns or hopes that you have, would be the most direct way to apply pressure.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, the executive committees, there's the 6 of us that represent the 3 organizations, and then there's the urban design panel, which is all of you, who are members of the various professions involved here. So, and we don't really have a very direct mechanism anymore to create letters that represent everybody's viewpoints here. So we haven't done that for quite a while, actually, as we used to do. So that's something we'll have to talk about amongst the executive committee here. So, but thanks for.
Yeah, sure. There's something to put on the board. Put some teeth back in the urban design committee.
Well, that has its controversial elements too.
No, I remember the days. But I will say the urban design committee used to have a lot of influence on things. I mean, it was a long time ago, but it was when I first started writing on architecture, urban design committee.
Yeah,
and affected things.
That urban design committee was what kind of morphed into this broader 3 organization urban design panel, as you may remember. And there was a reason why AIA no longer wanted to activate the committee by itself. So.
Yeah, and this is kind of a great opportunity today to sort of focus on the fact that we can be a facilitator, that we can be a platform. We have sent testimony in when asked about certain things that make great sense into the urban design community. But if we can facilitate this process of getting all of our voices into the conversation about a downtown at the governor's level, at all levels, that's the hope here. That's the exciting opportunity here. And I know for a fact that I made a point to invite, there's hoteliers on this call and other people responsible for like boots on the ground, streetscape, beautification, lighting, security, and they're all searching, looking to us for some of these ideas that we were able to post up today. So hopefully the word's traveling well.
Yep. Well, we'll have the 6 of us will have to kind of talk again very soon about a couple of the issues here that have been raised. So we will do that.
And again, if any of you all out in the audience have projects that you would like to bring to this group for broader input or just broader awareness, or you've hit a stuck point and this group might be able to help you move forward, we would love to hear from you and get you on the calendar.
Back to Randy's comment that the train is moving, I think what would help is if there was some way for UDP to see the larger picture of the plaza. And then after that, we can probably get consensus or at least an understanding. The exec board can then say, well, based on what we heard, these are the issues, and kind of report it that way too.
Yeah, that's right. Randy, we kind of we've been thinking about this plaza but we've been sort of stayed in the background a bit because of the amount of work that the committee or whatever the group that's involved in that you're involved in doing. If you could come to one of our executive committee meetings and do a quick presentation, that would be very helpful for us to understand what the design is about.
Let me talk to Ross and Todd Ferry, because CPID, Center for Public Interest Designs, effectively the designer on the project. Todd's in the thick of it. So I think he would be the best person to give you an update on where things are at.
By the way, our next executive committee meeting is next Wednesday, the 25th.
Oh, okay.
David opened the door there, so we
time?
have a few other things to talk about. It's at noon on the 25th.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have at least one, our next subject, we know what our schedule is out enough that we could spend some time taking a look at that with somebody who's really close to it. That would be fantastic.
And again, it's just the 6 of us, so. Actually, it's not going to be the 6. It'll be the 5 of us. I'll be in the hospital then, recovering from surgery on Monday. So,
well, can whoever I should coordinate with send me their email? I'm at just randygregg@gmail.com.
David, why don't you?
I'll take point, and then we'll go from there. Oftentimes, what happens is if we get a chance to look at it at the executive committee, then maybe we can say, "Hey, we'd like to make this a panel down the road." But in the interim, there's a certain urgency about support for it, so that would be great.
Yep.
All right. Will anyone have any final comments, questions, parting epiphanies?
Epiphanies, yes.
I have just a real quick question, Aaron. So we have this mural board. Is this going to stay open, or are we closing it for this event?
Excellent question. So I'm going to leave it open through the end of today so that in case anybody walks away and then has a brilliant idea at 3 o'clock this afternoon or something like that and wants to add it to the board, it'll be open to be able to add comments to. And then I'll close it up probably tomorrow morning so that I can start taking screenshots of all of the aggregated comments.
Will you be able to share the screenshots with this group?
Yeah, so what I'm planning to do is create that synthesized report with all of the key themes and then take the screenshots and put those probably into an appendix of that report. And when we send that task force report out to that group, we can also distribute it to everyone who registered for this event. So all of you have access to the report that we've put together.
So, Carol, I just noticed you wanted to know when IBR is. It's next meeting is November 21st. The third Tuesday, as it's been for many years.
But I don't think the registration's on the AIA Urban Design Panel yet site. So it's just a placeholder for your needs right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and Carol, I mean, you should be getting an email announcement as soon as we can get a little, sort of page put together for the AI events. Then we can, and then Kathy actually moves that into an email. It won't be tomorrow, but within the next couple of weeks. So what we encourage people to do is keep their third Tuesday of the month at noon blanked out for the urban design panel, and we'll let you know what subjects we come up with on a rolling fashion.
Yeah. And hopefully we can do a good job of letting you know well in advance, and also well in advance when we are canceling as well. So apologies for past faux pas there. We've fallen down on that a couple of times.
Well, and this is, you guys are a very active committee. So I just also want to applaud you for being so incredibly engaged and active. It's tough to always keep up, but we're doing the very best we can. And we'll, just engage and keep trying to do better. So I appreciate everybody's all hands on deck today, though. This is really great. And we got a lot of information out of it. So I'm really excited about what happens in conversation moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I would consider it, this is a first step, right? There's going to be lots and lots of iterations of this governor's action task force, and all of our efforts. We should keep an eye out, as Heather points out, AIA, ASLA, APA, looking for ways to be relevant, and constant in the conversation. I think we can refine lots of stuff. This was a great sort of broad brush. Thank you so much, Aaron Riom, for being so creative and cool and putting that mural board. I think that's why things were so quiet, because everyone was like immediately drawn like moths to the flame of the mural board, which is good because we can capture it. And I enjoyed everything as well. It is 1:30, 1:29. Aaron, unless you need to add anything at this point, I would
just a huge thank you to so many people for taking the time today and for jumping in and contributing so many wonderful ideas. Greatly appreciate it. I know everybody's really busy, so it's fabulous to have so many people engaged and involved. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's been wonderful.
Yes, thanks everyone out there in the professional community. Stay involved, stay relevant. As I say, third Tuesday of every month, we'll be here as best we can. Look for the next announcement soon in AIA. Have a great day, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.